The night air was sharp, whispering through the near-empty parking lot as Reeves stepped out of the grocery store, a paper bag in each hand. His breath lingered in the cold, and the rustling of leaves overhead was the only sound that accompanied his footsteps. But something in the corner of his eye halted him. In the furthest corner of the lot, an old, battered car sat under the flickering light of a failing street lamp. Its windows fogged the silhouette inside, barely visible. Until he looked closer, mismatched blankets bundled a small infant in someone's arms. A mother, cold. Keanu's steps slowed. The woman stepped out of the car just then, nervously pushing a line of shopping carts back to their bay. Her coat was worn, her movements heavy. She kept glancing around, not to see who was watching her but to avoid being seen. There was something about the way she returned again and again to that car, as if it wasn't just a place to rest, but her only sanctuary. Keanu froze, the weight of realization settling in. She was living in that car with her baby. He approached slowly, careful not to alarm her. He said gently, his voice more warmth than sound. The woman stiffened and looked over, eyes wide for a moment before darting away. "Are you okay? Is there any way I can help?" She shook her head. "I'm fine, thank you," she replied quickly. Her tone wasn't angry, it was guarded, protective. Keanu nodded and backed off. "All right, I understand. I'll be around if you need anything." She didn't answer. Within seconds, she was back in the car, holding her baby close. And then, through the foggy glass, Keanu saw the child shift. A tiny figure wrapped in patchwork warmth. He stood there, heart tightening. Fame had taken him many places. But this moment, this woman, this child, felt more real than any scene he'd ever filmed. That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. The image of the mother haunted him, the quiet desperation in her eyes, the baby's outline behind the glass. He knew he couldn't ignore it. So the next morning, Keanu returned. He parked in the same place and scanned the lot. The car was still there, still hidden beneath fogged windows and fading dignity. From a distance, he watched the woman place a small grocery bag in the back seat before climbing in. Quietly, Keanu pulled out 2 things he had brought from home: a new fleece blanket and a sealed bottle of mineral water. He didn't knock. He didn't say a word. He walked up slowly, gently laid the items on the hood of her car and stepped away. No attention, no spotlight, just a quiet offering. A few minutes passed, the car door creaked open. She looked out cautiously, eyes locking onto the items. Then she glanced around. She never saw him. With hesitant hands she picked up the bottle, then the blanket. Her lips moved, just slightly, like she was whispering a prayer or maybe a thank you, and then she was gone. Back inside the vehicle. Back into survival. Keanu stood still in his car, his heart full and yet aching. It still wasn't enough. The third day Keanu came back. This time he didn't bring anything, only himself and hope. He waited until she had finished pushing the last cart. Then, softly, he approached again. "Hey," he said, almost a whisper. She turned slowly, unsure. "I'm the guy who left the blanket and the water," he said. "I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable." Her eyes held that same tired worriness, but behind it, a flicker of something else. Curiosity. "Why?" she asked. "I just saw you, and thought maybe it could help. That's all." She didn't answer at first. Her hand gripped the edge of the cart, knuckles pale. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you," she said, the words coming like pebbles across still water, fragile, hesitant but real. Keanu nodded back. "If you'll let me, I'd like to help. But if not, that's okay too. Just know, needing help doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it just means you've been strong for too long." She didn't respond, but her shoulders eased just a little. Though she still seemed guarded, the hint of gratitude in her voice was a quiet breakthrough. Keanu didn't push. He simply nodded and turned to walk away. That's when he heard it. A faint, muffled cry coming from inside the car. He paused mid-step, his gaze drifting back toward her. He didn't say anything, didn't ask, but the sound had clearly shaken her. With urgency, the woman rushed to the vehicle and opened the door, scooping her baby into her arms. She rocked him gently, murmuring soft words only a mother could understand. Keanu stood nearby, hesitant. "Do you need anything for him?" he asked gently. "Formula? Diapers? Anything at all?" Her body stiffened, eyes tired and shining with a mixture of guilt, shame and fatigue. She opened her mouth to say no, the word almost forming, but something shifted in her face. The mother in her, the part that would swallow pride for the sake of her child, took over. I need milk," she whispered. It was barely audible, but it was enough. Keanu nodded instantly. "I'll be back in a few minutes." Without waiting, he turned and walked back toward the supermarket. When he returned, he held a small bag filled with powdered milk, diapers, and a fresh pack of baby wipes. The woman looked unsure, more suspicious than grateful, but she accepted the items slowly, her hands trembling as she held them like treasure. "Thank you," she murmured, eyes fixed on the bag. Keanu stood beside her car as she adjusted her baby, now quieter, nestled against her chest. "I know it's not my place," he said gently, "but if you need anything else, I'll be around." She didn't answer right away. But when she finally did, her voice broke a little. Things, they weren't supposed to be like this. It wasn't just a statement. It was a confession. A quiet cry for help buried inside a sentence. Keanu felt it deeply. This wasn't just a mother in crisis. This was a woman holding the weight of her world together with everything she had left. The next morning, Keanu returned. The same car was there, same corner, same rusted edges and fogged windows. But something was different. She was outside the car this time, cradling the baby. Her face was turned upward, blank eyes fixed on the morning sky, not searching, not hoping, just surviving. Keanu approached slowly. He said. She looked up, startled. But her shoulders didn't tense like before. She was still cautious but not cold. "You came back," she said softly. "I said I'd be around." Keanu replied with a gentle smile. "I hope I didn't overstep yesterday." She shook her head slowly. "No, it was kind of you." He glanced around and then motioned toward the nearby curb. "Mind if I sit?" She hesitated, looked at him for a moment, then nodded. Keanu sat down, resting his arms on his knees, letting a calm silence hang in the air. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said carefully. "But, can I ask your name?" She looked down at her child, then back at him. "Emily." Keanu nodded. "Nice to meet you, Emily. And this little guy?" She glanced at the baby, her lips forming a faint smile for the first time. "Oliver." Keanu repeated. "That's a strong name. I like it." Emily's posture eased. Just a little. The walls were still up, but now there were cracks. Keanu took a breath. "You know, I've been through some hard things too. Lost people who meant everything to me. People I thought I couldn't live without. And for a while I didn't think I'd make it." His voice stayed low, almost confessional. "But I did. Because of help, because someone reached out." Emily didn't speak, but her eyes were fixed on her baby, her expression unreadable. Then, barely louder than the wind, "Sometimes it feels like I'm alone in the world, like no one cares." Keanu leaned forward slightly. "I care." Their eyes met. She didn't reply, but he could see the change. The weight she carried beginning to shift. That night, as the city slept, Keanu returned once more. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. Instead, he quietly placed 2 large bags beside her car: baby food, hygiene essentials, soft toys, and a note written by hand, no strings attached. "Just care for both of you." When Emily awoke the next morning, she opened the car door and saw them. Her breath caught. She picked up a plush toy with trembling fingers, clutching it to her chest. Her eyes welled with tears. Part of her wanted to reject the kindness, push it all away. But the other part, the part that had carried Oliver through the darkest nights, whispered it's okay to accept help. She looked around. But he was gone. Still, something inside her had changed. The following day, Keanu had just arrived at the parking lot when he heard her voice. "Wait," he turned. Emily stood near the car, holding one of the bags he had left. "Thank you," she said. It means more than you know." Keanu smiled. "I'm just glad it helped. And if you ever need anything else." Emily cut him off gently. "I don't usually talk about this, but..." She paused, steadying herself. "I lost everything. My husband, my home, my life. And after that, something happened. Something I still don't understand." Keanu's expression shifted. He could feel it. She was on the edge of revealing something deeply personal. "You don't have to rush," he said quietly. "I'll be here. Whenever you're ready." Emily nodded, tears threatening her voice. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone wasn't walking away. Someone was listening. She looked at Oliver, then at Keanu. "It all started when he died, my husband. After that, things fell apart. But then something happened. Something no one would believe." Keanu leaned in slightly, listening without interrupting. Emily took a deep breath, holding Oliver close. Her gaze drifted, not into the present, but into a memory she had tried so long to bury. It started a year ago. She started speaking, her voice trembling barely above a whisper. "My husband Lam, he died in a car accident. It was just a normal night. He was coming home from work. Nothing unusual. It should have been ordinary." Keanu didn't interrupt. He simply listened, his eyes steady, offering her the space she needed. Emily wiped a tear that had betrayed her composure and escaped down her cheek. "When the police knocked on my door, it felt like the world disappeared beneath my feet. I didn't understand at first. I just remember the officer telling me he didn't suffer. But what did that matter? He was gone." Her lips trembled as she paused, trying to hold herself together. After that, everything started to fall apart. The life insurance barely covered anything. Bills began to stack up. And Liam's parents. She stopped, jaw clenched in frustration. "They said I wasn't stable enough to raise Oliver." Keanu leaned forward slightly, concern furrowing his brow. "They tried to take your son." Emily nodded slowly. "Said I was emotionally unstable." "Maybe I was. I was a wreck. But every choice I made, every single one, was for Oliver. I couldn't afford a lawyer. So when I realized the court wasn't on my side, I packed the car, took what little savings I had and ran to another state. I thought it'd just be temporary. That I'd find a job, stabilize things. She took a breath, bitterness seeping into her voice. I got work at a small cafe, started saving, and for a while it actually felt like I was making progress. But then a man began harassing me, saying vile things. One day I snapped, yelled at him. The manager didn't care, fired me. Keanu closed his eyes briefly, as if trying to absorb some of her burden. After that, the money ran out. We got evicted, the car became our home. I looked for jobs, but no one would hire a single mom with her child always beside her. They thought I wasn't committed enough. She paused again, looking at the ground. So I've been doing whatever I can. Odd jobs, pushing carts, hoping no one notices we live here. I know it's wrong. Oliver deserves better, but I'm exhausted. Keanu felt his chest tighten. He leaned forward, speaking softly but with conviction. Emily, you've been fighting a war no one should face alone, and no one can blame you for that. She lifted her eyes to his, eyes filled with disbelief. But I should have figured it out. I should have. You're trying. Keanu interrupted gently. That's more than most would do. You're fighting for your son every single day. That matters. That's strength. Silence hung for a moment, before Emily whispered, What do I do now? I'm at the end. There's nothing left. Keanu met her eyes. Then we start from here, together. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Before she could reply, he stood and walked briskly to his car. His expression was focused, he had a plan. And he wasn't about to let this woman and her son fade into the margins. As his car drove off into the dark, Emily stared after him through her rearview mirror, hope and fear wrestling inside her. Keanu sat in his car, staring out the windshield, heart heavy with the weight of everything Emily had endured. Every injustice, every sleepless night, every quiet moment of despair. He knew a warm bed or a few bills in her pocket wouldn't change her life. What she needed was bigger, a foundation, a real shot at starting over with dignity. He picked up his phone and started making calls. One after another, he had connections, influence, and tonight he would use every ounce of it. We're going to start something big, he muttered, fingers flying across the screen, as he typed a message to a trusted friend. No one should have to go through this alone. Inside the motel room, Emily quietly tucked little Oliver into bed. For the first time in months, she lay down on a real mattress. Her body, heavy with exhaustion, began to give in. But just before sleep claimed her, she whispered into the darkness, Maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning. Outside, Keanu ended his final call and looked toward the glowing lights of the motel. A quiet determination lit up his face. Tomorrow would be day one of something life-changing. The next morning, Keanu was already on his feet, fired up with purpose. The night had been long, filled with messages, favors, brainstorming. But he wasn't tired, he was driven. This wasn't charity. This was justice. It was giving a mother and her son the dignity they deserved. His first stop was a community center he had funded in the past. Inside, he sat down with the director, explaining everything. She needs housing, social support, and if possible, a job, he said. She's a fighter, but she's stuck. She just needs a way out. The director nodded gently. We can help. Temporary housing, social workers, and even job placement. We'll guide her through. Keanu offered a heartfelt thanks, then handed the center a quiet but powerful donation. Emily was his priority, but others needed help too. He wasn't about to forget them. That afternoon, Keanu returned to the motel. Emily, holding Oliver in her lap, looked up at the knock. When she opened the door, there he stood, smiling, calm, with a few shopping bags in hand. I brought something for you, he said warmly. Inside the bags were fresh clothes for her and Oliver, and a hygiene kit with everything she hadn't had access to in months. I don't even know how to thank you, she whispered, eyes welling. You don't need to, Keanu replied. But if you're ready, we can talk about the next step. She nodded slowly. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe enough to listen. As Oliver played quietly with a toy Keanu had gifted him, Emily sat beside Keanu and listened carefully. There's a place for you and Oliver, he said. It's temporary but safe. People there will help you get on your feet. I've also talked to a few folks about job options. But it's all about what you're comfortable with. She blinked, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this for us? She asked, voice fragile. Keanu took a breath. Because I can. And because everyone deserves a chance to start over. If I have the power to help and don't use it, what kind of person would I be? Keanu drove them to the community center. The director greeted Emily with a warm handshake and a soft smile. The room was small but clean, with a bed for her and a crib for Oliver. Emily's eyes glistened with tears as she took it all in. I don't know how to express what this means, she said. You don't have to. Keanu replied gently. This isn't charity. This is your new beginning. That night, as Emily laid Oliver down in the crib, something flickered back to life inside her. Hope. Outside, Keanu stood with the director going over everything. I want her to have everything she needs, he said. Time, support, options. If anything else comes up, call me. You've given her something no one else has, the director said with a smile. A real chance. Keanu looked back at the glowing windows of the shelter. This is just the beginning. A week's passed. Emily began to build a routine. With help from the center and Keanu's contacts, she landed a part-time job as a receptionist. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. It meant progress. On her first day, Keanu walked her to the office door. This is step 1, he said softly. You've got this? Emily stepped inside, nervous but ready. Kind colleagues greeted her, and a patient manager showed her the ropes. She was respected. Slowly, confidence returned to her voice and steps. Each evening she came home tired, but proud. For the first time in ages, she was taking back control. One night she shared news with Keanu. She had decided to let her in-laws visit Oliver on her terms. You made a hard but brave choice, Keanu said. You're leading now, and you're doing it with strength. Emily smiled, watching Oliver giggle on the floor. The apartment was small, but it was filled with love, safety, and a future that looked brighter every day. One quiet morning in a local cafe over warm mugs of coffee, Emily looked up at Keanu. I want you to know one day I'll pay you back for everything. He shook his head gently. Emily, you already are. Every step you take is repayment. I didn't do this expecting anything. Her eyes softened, but her voice was steady. Still, I want to help others, like you helped me. Keanu smiled. That's the best way to repay anything. Turn your story into hope for someone else. That night, Keanu drove home under a blanket of stars. He looked up through the windshield, gratitude heavy in his chest. He hadn't just helped change Emily's life, she had changed his. And back in her apartment, Emily tucked Oliver into bed. She watched him sleep peacefully and whispered a silent promise to the future. There would be challenges, but she wasn't afraid anymore. Her story had just begun, and she now knew, even in the darkest places there's always light, often from the most unexpected hearts.